kind of surprised that nobody made a video about the recent firmware update for the HeadRush Prime. So I figured I'd go ahead and do it. Now, just in case you don't know who I am, I'm Doug B, and I've had this channel for the past 2 years, and I've been a Fractal fanboy for the past 4 years. I've been doing tutorials for the Fractal units, and right now, this is my 360th video. Wow. I recently had major surgery, and while I was recuperating, I decided it was time to expand away from just Fractal units, so I got a few different modelers and profilers, including the HeadRush Prime. The HeadRush Prime arrived while I was pretty much confined to my recliner, and really all I could do was turn it on and look at it, which was, kind of cool, but I really wanted to get into it. Now, I'm still recuperating, but I can get up to my studio now and do work, so I figured, hey, it is time to do a video on this firmware, even though it's a few weeks old now. The day that I moved the Prime into my studio was the day that firmware 3.1.1 came out. I hooked everything up, powered it up, and hey, there was a message about new firmware. Now, I didn't bother to back anything up because I didn't have anything to back up. This was the first time literally that it had been turned on. The firmware update process took, maybe around 5 minutes or so. There was no issues with it. I plugged my guitar in, checked out some of the presets, downloaded some rigs and clones from the cloud. Everything worked fine. Since everything was working well, I went looking for some information on everything that had been involved in this update. Here's the info that I found. Here are the changes since firmware version 3.1. Cloning improvements. Significantly removed latency from AMP clones and improved overall system latency. Improved the AMP cloner algorithm to provide better identification of overall distortion level and sustain during the measurement process. Improved AMP clone quality when cloning a very clean amp connected directly to HeadRush Prime. Fixed an issue where the sag, chug, and master settings were not saved as part of a clone file, which could cause unexpected volume jumps. Improved switching between scenes that have amp clones assigned to each. Fixed an issue where the wrong clone icon type would be shown if the block was switched from an amp clone to a pedal clone. Fixed an issue where a reset could occur if a clone was loaded directly from a USB drive, then powered off, then powered back on with the USB drive disconnected. Fixed an issue where an externally corrupted clone file or a clone file moved to another folder in the internal storage could potentially cause a reset. Fixed a very rare issue when the device could potentially freeze if cloning an amplifier or other target device that has a noise gate enabled. Wi-Fi/HeadRush cloud improvements. Fixed an issue where a reset would sometimes occur when connected to a Wi-Fi mesh network. Fixed an issue where users could not connect to an open Wi-Fi network that did not have password protection. Fixed an issue where the user was not warned if they were trying to upload a rig with a missing amp clone, resulting in being stuck on the uploading dialog. Fixed an issue where the user was not warned if they were downloading the same rig multiple times. Fixed an issue on HeadRush Cloud where some genre filters were not sorted correctly. FX improvements. Improved the UI of the global EQ feature, as well as the Para EQ effect block, to use a new Touch UI for easier adjustments. Fixed an issue where 2 instances of the Buddha comp in a rig would result in having no parameters appear for the second instance. Fixed an issue where the harmony sound of the vocal harmony effect would go missing if the mode parameter were set to fixed and then the effect was bypassed and then turned back on. Fixed an issue with auto-tune where setting the tune speed parameter to 400 milliseconds and humanize parameter to 100% would cause a reset. Fixed an issue where the stutter effect would not correctly bypass when switching to another rig with the stutter effect. Added the ability to assign the mode parameter for the vibe phaser to a foot switch. Added the ability to assign the voices and LFO shape parameters for the multi-chorus to a foot switch. Added the ability to assign the chorus mode and stereo parameters for the 84J120H to a foot switch. Now, as far as cloning improvements, I haven't been able to test that out because I haven't cloned anything yet. My amp is downstairs and it weighs like 150 pounds, or at least feels like that. So it's going to be a while before I have it up in the studio to do some cloning. But from what I heard, the old firmware was adding 14 milliseconds of latency to each clone. Now, if you just used one clone, you might not notice that. But if you put 2 clones together, like a pedal clone and an amp clone, Well, now you're talking 28 milliseconds of latency, and that's just unplayable. You would notice that. It would be so hard to play with it. But I'm not noticing any latency now, even using 2 clones. So this is a very simple 2-clone rig that I made. The first block is a Klon Centaur amp clone. Second block is a 1959 Silvertone 1432 at half volume. That also is an amp clone. Now, prior to firmware 3.11, if you put these two together, you would have 28 milliseconds of latency, which just wouldn't work. But now, it's just as latency free as you can possibly get. I do believe they took care of the latency issue. Now, as far as the Wi-Fi / HeadRush cloud improvements, I noticed that when I first had it set up in the house, that it would shut itself off every now and then when I turned it back on, it would say reconnected to network. I took a look and we were on a mesh network, and that's what was causing that. Well, now since 3.1.1, no more dropouts. Yeah, it has not shut itself down once or reset itself once since this firmware update. And I see now that if you've downloaded something from the cloud, it puts a check mark letting you know that you've already downloaded this. I'm not sure if that mark was there before or not. Now, the genre filters all look like they're working okay, but I was not going to go through all 47 different genres to see if everything was in its right place. The global EQ and parametric EQ block are very easy to use, but I have no idea what they looked like before. Now they have 4 EQ points that you can just adjust easily with your finger. Okay, now here's a rig with 2 instances of the Buddha comp. Parameters show up in both instances. There were 3 fixes listed for the vocal effects, so I'm going to use my Antelope condenser mic, and we have to turn 48 volt on. Phantom power. There we go. Here's a vocal rig with the vocal harmony effect. The mode parameter is set to fixed. Now we'll try it turned on, then we'll bypass it and turn it back on again. Check, check, check. That's beautiful, isn't it? Now we turn it off. And then we turn it back on again and it's working. Now we'll turn off vocal harmony and turn on auto tune. We'll set the tune speed parameter to 400 milliseconds. And the humanize parameter to 100%. This used to cause the unit to reset, but no more, no problem. Okay, just for the heck of it, let's try this. When you think it's too hard to build a rig and try the effects, it shows you how simple it is. However, the effects might be shoddy or janky. We don't know. There was an issue with the vocal stutter effect not bypassing correctly when switching to another rig with the stutter effect. I'm not quite sure what they mean by bypassing correctly, but let's try 2 vocal rigs using the stutter effect with one on and one off, and we'll switch between them. This is vocal rig number 1 with the stutter. Now we'll switch to rig 2. That one has it bypassed, and it seems to be bypassed correctly. Now let's go back to number 1. And I think we're back to stuttering again. Now let's switch to number 2 and turn it on. All right, now stutter 2 is on, and let's switch back and forth between them. Here's number 1. Here's number 2. And here's number 1 again. Now there are a couple other items on the update list about assigning various parameters to foot switches, but maybe we'll go over that in another video. Now, as far as I was concerned, this firmware update was a success, but there are quite a few people in the HeadRush forum and in Facebook groups saying that it really messed up their clones, that their clones were unusable now, that they were really bassy, Now, these weren't clones that they had downloaded. These were clones that they themselves had created. I downloaded a few clones and didn't notice anything, but like I said, I had not created any clones, so I couldn't test that part of it. And there were other people that had other problems too. So, I mean, I really feel for the devs on this, because for most people it's working fine, but there are a handful of people that are having some problems. And hopefully the devs are working on it, and we'll see, what would it be, firmware 3.1.2 in the not too distant future. And I sure do hope that they are working on an editor for this unit. I would love to see that in the next update. Now, this Friday will be the reveal for the blindfold challenge that I posted last week. You don't want to miss that. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. All right, guys, I will see you on Friday.